Hi, today I want to expand on the argument that when a centralized government collapses or loses stability, we tend to see a spike in looting within that country. And I'm going to use Greece as a case study. We know that with the economic downfall in 2008 and within the European Union, Greece has been one of the hardest hit countries economically, leading to massive protests and general discontent throughout the population. And I briefly discussed this in previous posts about looting in Syria, Egypt, and Iraq. And although Greece is not in the midst of a civil war, the idea and concept is still the same. Now, before I go into details, I wanted to give some highlights of ancient Greece. And this might show why this is such a big deal of looting in Greece. So there's, of course, the Acropolis in Athens, home to the Parthenon. You can see the Acropolis on the top and the Parthenon on the bottom. We have the famous poet Homer, the writer of the Iliad and the Odyssey. In case you don't know Homer, he is the writer of the Trojan War, which was told to us in the Iliad and the Odyssey and made famous by Hollywood in the movie Troy. Now we have the Olympics. I hope I really don't have to explain too much on this, but the site of Olympia in Greece is the original site of the Olympics thousands of years ago. And we play them every 4 years, as you know. Now, of course, we have the Greek gods and goddesses, Zeus, Hera, Aphrodite, Athena. I can keep going. And last but not least, we have Greece democracy. Greece founded democracy, and this is the highlight of Western civilization. Now, let me shift from talking about history to talking about recent looting. Now, in 2012, in February, robbers raided and stole artifacts from the Museum of the History of the Olympia. That is the museum at Olympia that discusses the history of the Olympics. Now, what the robbers did is they tied the lone guard up. This lone guard was a female. And they smashed the display cases and cabinets. So look at this picture and imagine some of these cases smashed. And they got away with a total of 77 artifacts. Some of them figurines, coins, rings. This is a big deal, of course, but luckily the thieves were apprehended in November of that year because police caught a man trying to sell one of those rings originally for about 1.5 euro. What's that, about almost 3 million US, a little bit under, maybe 2.7 depending on the rate. And then that thief, not being able to sell the artifact, lowered the price to just 300,000 euro. Still a lot, but I briefly discussed how you're most likely not able to sell something if you steal it from a museum. I mean, it's well known. So, how a robber is able to rob a known museum? Well, economic cuts. So because the economy was hit so badly, the Minister of Culture had to cut 30 to 35% of jobs. These are jobs to preserve the artifacts, conserve the artifacts. This is a huge issue within archaeology and museums. Just think about it. If you can't protect an artifact from the elements, rain, dust, humidity, fire, extreme cold, artifacts could expand, contract, cracks could develop, paint can start to fade or chip, and just random bugs can also get into artifacts. And once the destruction happens, it is nearly impossible, probably is impossible, to get this information back to see what this artifact once was. You know, just imagine buildings crumble because they deteriorate over time. And without preservation and conservation, the deterioration process does not stop or slow down as we like to do. Now, with the cuts, we also have seen cuts to security, to not only museums, but archaeological sites and tourist attractions. So much so that robbers even did a heist at the National Gallery in Athens, getting away with a Picasso. So I always tie it back to archaeology and how looters are targeting archaeological sites. And yes, they are easy targets because Greece does not have the money to fund for security guards, either for one or more security guards, or security guards to be there round the clock. Sometimes sites are just closed off completely because they cannot protect these sites. Now, it's very troubling when we discuss archaeological sites being closed off or museums being closed off to the public. And why is this important? And I get asked this question a lot. Why care about archaeology? Why care about the protection of archaeological sites? Aren't there more important things to focus on than these archaeological sites? Well, I ask people, how would you feel in the US if someone lit a torch to the whole battlefield of Gettysburg and just destroyed it? I'm sure there will be an uproar. And the reason behind that is archaeological sites and culture often play a role as symbols of cultural identity, meaning we attach our image of ourselves as a nation, as a people, to these sites or to cultural artifacts. So in Greece, think of the Parthenon. The Parthenon is a symbol of Greek national identity, made famous in that movie, My Big Fat Greek Wedding. The pride of being Greek is tied back to ancient Greece. Now, I know that movie was a romantic comedy, but there are elements of truth. Now, another important reason why the protection of archaeological sites is so important is because these sites, including museums, I will say, allure tourists. And this brings up the discussion of a tourism market. It's an industry. So you need the tourists to build up this industry. And industry is money. And now you need money to come in to protect these sites, hence the cuts. And you need this money to fund research and preserve and conserve and to create museums in order to lure tourists. And we need to lure tourists to bring in more money. So it's a cycle. Now, with the closure of sites in Greece, you can see why this is such a problem. How can Greece afford to close off sites or afford not to? It's a catch-22. Now, with the closure of sites, this is a great hit to one of Greece's biggest industries, which is its tourism market. And once we destroy a tourism market, Greece cannot bring in more money. Now, without that money, the population is becoming more discontent. And this discontent just leads to more looting. Also, on the basics, because there's a cut of jobs in general, people are looting in order to make what they think is quick money, which in reality it's not, but I can save that for another post. So moving on, and I'm going to end it here actually, with a question to you all. So given the information I provided you briefly about the economy in Greece and the blows to archaeological sites and museums and looting and people trying to sell artifacts on the antiquities trade, do you think that Britain should return the Parthenon marbles to Greece? Now, as I noted in previous posts, in the 19th century, Lord Elgin took marbles from the Parthenon and shipped them back to his home in England in hopes of building a museum just for these marbles and other Greek art to inspire others. Of course, long story short, he went bankrupt, and the British Museum bought these marbles, and in these pictures, they have them on display. It's one of the highlights of the British Museum. And for such a long time, decades, Greece has been fighting for the return of these marbles, saying these marbles belong to us. They are a part of our identity. And the British Museum would say they are now a part of our identity. And we are better able to protect these marbles than you are. And Greece would say, we have come a long way, and we now have the ability to protect these marbles, so much so that they built a museum at the Acropolis to showcase what is missing and say, this is the future home for the marbles. But now, given the economy, Greece cannot even say that they can protect their artifacts, because we've seen looting and destruction of sites. So again, I pose this question to you. What do you think that the argument and the debate has changed about whether or not Britain should return the Parthenon marbles to Greece? So thank you, and I hope you enjoyed my short little presentation of the economy in Greece making victims out of antiquity. Thank you.